November 3rd, 2020, 7:32 a.m., Lakeview Medical Center, Ohio. The operating room sterile silence shattered with metallic clink, sharp as a rifle shot. Dr. Thomas Grant's scalpel froze above Walter Delaney's knee, the blade catching the surgical light's glare. Nurses stood rooted, trays untouched, as the elderly man, 89, weathered a veteran of wars and winters, lay still under anesthesia, his face a map of secrets. The scalpel hadn't sliced muscle or nicked bone. It struck metal, a rusted shard buried behind the kneecap, glinting like a ghost from another time. Dr. Grant's pulse hammered, sweat beading under his mask. "Retract," he rasped, voice tight. Tissue parted, revealing a jagged, oxidized relic, curled as if torn by force or fate. The CT scan had dismissed it as a shadow, a trick of age. Now, it stared back undeniable. Walter, a recluse by Lake Erie, had carried this for 76 years, silent as a grave. What was this fragment hiding? What pain had he locked away with it? You're stepping into a story that cuts through flesh and time. Stay with us. The truth is heavier than you think. Walter Delaney's cabin crouched on Lake Erie's edge, its peeling paint and creaking porch a defiant stand against time. Inside, the air was thick with old wood and coffee, pierced only by the tick of hallway clock and the faint swing of Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade on a 1940s radio. At 89, Walter lived with clockwork precision. 5:30 a.m., one black coffee, a seat by the window to watch the lake's grade churn. He circled typos in a local paper with a red pen, sanded wood in his garage for no reason, the shavings piling like unspoken words. Neighbors saw a polite shadow, nodding but never stopping, his life a rhythm unbroken except by the fire in his right knee, a swelling, throbbing ache that turned his skin purple, taut as a drum, flaring with every cold snap. The pain began in Sicily, 1943. Walter, 23, a private in the 45th Infantry, marched through olive groves under a sun that burned like judgment. His squad of 12 was ambushed, MG-42 fire ripping the air, bullets like God-tearing paper. A round slammed into Walter's leg, dropping him in the dirt, blood soaking his trousers. Henry, his best friend, dragged him behind a crumbling wall, only to take a bullet to the chest. "Told you I'd get you out," Henry said, smiling as he died. Field medics patched Walter, leaving shrapnel too deep to risk removing. "I'm fine," he lied, but the metal stayed, a silent passenger, and so did the guilt. Henry's reckless grin haunted his nightmares, the quiet of his cabin, the burn of bourbon he drank when the knee flared. Walter never spoke of it. Not to Eleanor, his wife, gone since 1985, her floral curtains fading untouched, her ceramic mugs gathering dust. Not to Michael, his son, 50, in Florida, their weekly calls a dance of weather and clipped courtesies. Michael tried to close the gap, flying up for Walter's 88th birthday with a cake Walter wouldn't touch. Sugar's bad for joints. When Michael offered Florida, Walter said, "I don't like humidity," but it was vulnerability he dodged. The knee was his penance, a secret he chose, tied him to Henry and the men he couldn't save. When it swelled, he drank bourbon, not a sip, but enough to dull the edge. Sitting rigid in his recliner, radio humming, TV static his only company. One October morning, the pain turned vicious, a splinter twisting under bone. The knee ballooned, skin a bruised plum, hot and unyielding. Walter limped to the kitchen, grabbed the bourbon, and swallowed hard, the burn no match of fire in his leg. That night, he woke shouting by the front door, knuckles white, unsure how he got there. A neighbor's call brought the sheriff, finding Walter on the porch, smoking a cigarette he'd quit decades ago. "Arthritis," he muttered, waving it off. But this wasn't age. Something was awake, demanding to be seen. Why did he refuse a doctor? What was he hiding, not just in his knee, but in his soul? You're feeling the weight now, aren't you? What kind of man carries a war for 76 years? Walter hated hospitals, their sterile glare, their probing questions, the way they stripped you bare. But Michael's voice cut through a video call, sharp against the November chill. "You're not in a foxhole anymore," he said, catching Walter's gray pallor, the sweat on his brow. "I'm afraid of what they'll find," Walter confessed, the words a crack in his armor. Michael's reply was soft but firm. "You've carried it long enough. Let it go." For Eleanor, her memory whispering he was safest by water, Walter agreed to see a doctor, his reluctance heavy as the lake's fog. Dr. Sarah Kim met him at Lakeview Medical Center, her calm eyes meeting his guarded ones. Walter sat, paper gown crinkling, gripping the table, his knee a swollen, purple mass. "Pain level?" she asked. 7, 8 when I stand," he grunted. Her gloved fingers probed the heat, the taut skin, the veins snaking like a map. "Implants?" "Surgeries." He shook his head. X-rays and an MRI followed, their hums echoing gunfire in his mind. Dr. Kim returned, her face a mix of curiosity and unease, showing a monitor with a dense, oblong shadow behind the kneecap. "It's metallic," she said. "Not an implant. Too rough. Shrapnel, maybe, from combat." Walter's silence was his answer. "Why now?" he asked. "It's shifting or breaking down," she said. "We need surgery." In the operating suite, Dr. Thomas Grant's scalpel traced a precise line along Walter's knee. Monitors beeped. Nurses hovered. Michael watched through the observation window, his coffee growing cold. Tissue parted, muscle, fascia. Then a metallic clink stopped the room. "Retractor," Grant said, voice taut. The assistant pulled back tissue, revealing a rusted, jagged shard, 3 centimeters long, threaded at one end, curled like it had been ripped from history. "Bullet fragment," Grant said, holding it to the light. "World War II, likely." A nurse's breath caught, placed in a specimen cup. It sat heavy, a relic of war. Walter slept, unaware, his face calm, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. Why had it stayed quiet so long, only to roar now? What else was it guarding? Post-surgery, Walter seemed stable, sipping broth, grumbling about the food. But on day 3, he faltered, eyes unfocused, skin ashen, fever spiking to 103.8 degrees Fahrenheit. "Septic," Dr. Kim declared, ordering antibiotics and an ICU transfer. Michael flew from Florida, finding his father unconscious, tubes snaking from his arms. Dr. Grant explained, "Latent bacteria, trapped with the shrapnel, went wild when we removed it." Michael sat, watching Walter's chest rise and fall, wondering what else his father had buried. Was the metal more than a wound? A chain to a past he couldn't face? "You're seeing it now, aren't you?" The real scar wasn't in the flesh. It was in the silence. In the ICU, Walter drifted between sterile walls and a Sicilian ridge. Gunfire roared, dust choked the air. Henry's voice, "Come on, move," pulled him through the chaos. Walter crawled, legs screaming, until Henry hauled him behind a wall. Then the wet gasp, blood blooming on Henry's chest, his tired smile. "Told you I'd get you out." Walter woke, gasping in a hospital room, Michael's face above him. "It's gone," Michael said. They took it out. Walter's voice cracked. It hurt worse than the cold. Then a whisper, "Tell Henry the first didn't forget." Recovery was a slog. Fever, antibiotics, days blurring into nights. Michael stayed, cooking simple meals, sorting old photos, filling the cabin with life. Laughter, clinking dishes, jazz on the radio. One night, Walter spoke, voice low. "Henry saved me. I froze. He didn't. He died for it." Michael listened as decades unraveled. "I kept the bullet," Walter said. "Thought I deserved the pain." Michael shook his head. "You owed him your life, not your suffering." Walter's eyes glistened. "I never told Eleanor enough. Or you." Michael took his hand. "You're telling me now." The words cracked something open, letting light into a place long sealed. Weeks later, they stood by Lake Erie, a wooden box in Walter's hands, the bullet fragment inside. The water shimmered, pine-scented air sharp. "Eleanor said I was safest by water," Walter said, voice steady. He tipped the box, the metal slipping into the lake, ripples fading into the gray-blue depths. "Goodbye, Henry," he whispered. Michael stood silent, the lake swallowing the past. Dr. Kim later shared a final truth. The fragment's composition matched German MG-42 rounds, its path confirming a close-range hit, likely from the ambush Walter described. It validated his story, giving the VA a piece to untangle other wartime secrets. Why had he carried it so long? Letting go felt like betraying Henry, until it felt like freedom. You're feeling it, aren't you? The weight we carry and the peace when it sinks. Walter Delaney carried a war in his knee for 76 years. A bullet fragment, a memory, a guilt he thought was his due. A swollen joint, a son's insistence, and a surgeon's blade unearthed it, revealing a truth he'd buried. Survival isn't a debt, it's a gift. By Lake Erie, as he let the metal slip into the water, Walter said goodbye to Henry, to the war, to the silence that had caged him. Michael, by his side, proved love outlasts distance. The VA used Walter's case to probe hidden wartime injuries, giving others closure. His cabin, once a vault, now hummed with shared stories. What weight are you carrying unspoken in your bones? A regret, a loss, a truth you've locked away? Share below. What's your lake, your moment to let go? Walter found peace at 89. It's never too late for yours.